The piano, today one of the most beloved and universal instruments in the world, has a history that stretches back centuries, blending innovation, craftsmanship, and the constant pursuit of musical expression. Its story begins not as a sudden invention, but as an evolution from earlier keyboard instruments like the clavichord and harpsichord. These predecessors laid the groundwork for what would eventually become the piano, shaping the mechanics, aesthetics, and sound possibilities of a new era in music. To truly understand the story of the piano, one must step back in time to medieval Europe, when musicians and inventors sought ways to combine strings, hammers, and keys into an instrument that could capture both subtle delicacy and powerful resonance. Before the piano, the harpsichord reigned supreme during the Renaissance and Baroque periods. The harpsichord produced sound by plucking strings with a quill when a key was pressed, creating a bright and metallic timbre. It was widely popular in the 16th and 17th centuries, used by composers like Johann Sebastian Bach, Domenico Scarlatti, and Frankia Couperin. However, the harpsichord had a fundamental limitation. It could not vary dynamics easily. Whether the player pressed a key gently or forcefully, the volume remained largely the same. This lack of expressive range left composers and performers longing for an instrument that could mirror the human voice as ability to whisper or shout, to express emotion dynamically in real time. At the same time, another instrument, the clavichord, offered more expressiveness as it struck the string with a small brass blade called a tangent, allowing for dynamic changes. The clavichord could produce soft and intimate tones, perfect for personal practice and emotional nuance. But it was also extremely quiet, making it unsuitable for large performances or ensemble playing. The contrast between the harpsichord as brightness and volume and the clavichord as intimacy and expressiveness revealed a gap in the musical world. What musicians craved was an instrument combining both power and sensitivity. This is where Bartolomeo Cristofori, an Italian harpsichord maker from Padua, entered the story. Cristofori worked as a craftsman in the early 18th century and was deeply familiar with keyboard instruments. Around the year 1700, he invented what he initially called the gravicembalo col pianoforte, meaning harpsichord with soft and loud. This revolutionary design would later be shortened simply to pianoforte and eventually piano. What made Cristofori's invention so groundbreaking was its action mechanism. Instead of plucking strings like the harpsichord, Cristofori's piano used hammers covered with leather to strike the strings. This allowed the player to control volume by varying the pressure of the keys, playing softly, piano, or loudly, forte. The hammer mechanism was ingenious, featuring an escapement that allowed the hammer to fall away from the string immediately after striking, preventing unwanted buzzing or muting. Cristofori's first surviving pianos, dating back to around 1720, reveal just how sophisticated his design was, far ahead of his time. At first, however, the piano did not immediately catch on. Many musicians were accustomed to the sound of the harpsichord, and Cristofori's pianos were expensive and rare. Moreover, the early piano's tone was softer and somewhat different from the powerful instruments we know today. Yet slowly, the advantages of dynamic control and expressive range began to win admirers. By the mid-18th century, the piano was gaining momentum across Europe. Prominent composers started experimenting with it, and the instrument's potential became clearer. The works of Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach, the son of Johann Sebastian Bach, demonstrated the piano's expressive possibilities. Meanwhile, in Vienna, piano making flourished. Viennese builders such as Johann Andreas Stein developed lighter instruments with wooden frames, thin strings, and delicate hammers, producing a sweet, singing tone. These Viennese pianos became favorites of composers like Mozart, who wrote numerous piano sonatas and concertos specifically for them. Mozart's piano music reflected the light, elegant sound of these early instruments. His compositions showed how the piano could capture graceful melodies quick passages, and emotional contrasts, setting the stage for the instrument's central role in classical music. Yet as the 18th century progressed, musical demands increased. Composers such as Ludwig van Beethoven began pushing the piano to its limits, requiring greater volume, wider dynamic range, and stronger instruments capable of sustaining their bold ideas. Beethoven's works in particular highlighted the need for a sturdier piano. His powerful chords, dramatic dynamics, and long sustained passages demanded more than the delicate Viennese models could offer. This challenge sparked further innovation in piano construction. In the late 18th and early 19th centuries, piano makers in England, such as Broadwood, and in France, such as Erard, began building heavier instruments with stronger wooden frames and eventually iron reinforcement. These changes allowed for thicker strings, higher tension, and thus a more powerful sound. One of the major breakthroughs was the introduction of the full cast iron frame in the mid-19th century. This invention, pioneered by American builders like Alpheus Babcock and Jonas Chickering, transformed the piano into the robust and resonant instrument we know today. A cast iron frame could withstand the immense tension of steel strings, enabling louder volume and a broader tonal range without the risk of structural collapse. Alongside this, innovations such as felt-covered hammers instead of leather and improved action mechanisms contributed to greater expressiveness and reliability. By the time of Franz Liszt, Frédéric Chopin, and Johannes Brahms in the 19th century, the piano had become the dominant instrument of the Romantic era. Chopin's delicate nocturnes, filled with poetic expression, highlighted the piano's lyrical side, while Liszt's virtuosic showpieces demonstrated its ability to dazzle with speed, power, and drama. The piano also found a central place in homes, becoming a symbol of culture, refinement, and education. Middle-class families in Europe and America often purchased upright pianos, which saved space while still offering rich sound. The spread of upright pianos brought music making into countless households, fostering a new culture of amateur musicianship. In addition, the piano became central to musical genres beyond classical. During the late 19th and early 20th centuries, ragtime and jazz exploded onto the scene, both relying heavily on the piano. Scott Joplin's ragtime pieces, such as Maple Leaf Rag, showcased the piano's rhythmic energy and syncopation. Later, jazz pianists like Duke Ellington, Fats Waller, and Thelonious Monk expanded the instrument's role, using it for improvisation, harmonies, and rhythmic drive. In the classical world, composers like Claude Debussy and Maurice Ravel explored new tonal colors on the piano, inspired by Impressionism, while Sergei Rachmaninoff and Sergei Prokofiev pushed the instrument's power and virtuosity to new extremes. Technological innovations also continued into the 20th century. The invention of the player piano, which used punched rolls to mechanically play music, allowed households to enjoy performances without a live pianist. This was an early step toward automation in music. Later, the development of the electric piano in the mid-20th century, such as the Fender Rhodes and Wurlitzer, introduced entirely new timbres that shaped jazz, rock, and popular music. These instruments, while different from the acoustic piano, borrowed its keyboard layout, making the piano's influence extend far beyond traditional concert halls. Eventually, digital pianos and synthesizers emerged, providing electronic alternatives capable of mimicking or even surpassing the acoustic piano in versatility. Today, digital keyboards offer sampled grand piano sounds, portability, and features that traditional pianos cannot match, such as volume control, headphone use, and integration with recording software. Yet despite these innovations, the acoustic piano, whether grand or upright, retains a special place in the musical world. Concert grands, with their immense sound and resonance, remain central to classical performance. Legendary pianists such as Vladimir Horowitz, Arthur Rubinstein, Glenn Gould, Martha Argerich, and Lang Lang have elevated piano playing to an art form, inspiring generations with their mastery. The piano continues to evolve as new materials, technologies, and design ideas are explored. Yet its essence remains the same, a bridge between delicate intimacy and overwhelming power, capable of expressing the full spectrum of human emotion. In conclusion, the story of the piano is one of continuous innovation, driven by the desire for greater expression. From Cristofori's first invention in 1700, through Mozart's elegance, Beethoven's power, Chopin's poetry, and Liszt's virtuosity, to the global dominance of the piano in classical, jazz, and popular music, this instrument has shaped the very course of musical history. Its adaptability, versatility, and emotional depth ensure that it remains not just an instrument, but a universal language of expression. The piano is both timeless and ever-evolving, embodying centuries of craftsmanship and creativity. And as long as there are musicians seeking to express the full range of human feeling, the piano will continue to play a central role in the story of music.